There, I'm Charlie Webb. I'm a coordinator of math instruction in the school district, and I'm happy to be here to read with you today. Of course, because I like math, I want you to be able to share and understand how important math is for so many careers and so many pieces of our history in our country. And so today I'm going to read a book called Counting on Katherine. This is a book about Katherine Johnson. There's actually been a movie made about her, and if you get the opportunity, it was out a few years ago, so maybe on Netflix and you can be able to see this. This was written by Helene Becker and Dow Fumeric. I may be saying that name wrong. Katherine loved to count. She counted the steps to the road, the steps up to the church, the number of dishes and spoons she washed in the bright white sink. You could see Katherine as a little girl, always counting. It was the thing that she liked to do. The only thing she didn't count were the stars in the sky. Only a fool, she thought, would try that. Even so, the stars sparked her imagination. What was out there? Katherine yearned to know as much as she could about numbers, about the universe, about everything. That reminds me of my son. My son once told me when he was going into college that he was having so much fun that he wanted to learn about everything. Such an exciting goal to set. Katherine's boundless curiosity turned her into a star student. She was so bright, she skipped 3 whole grades. She catapulted right past her brother, and he wasn't too happy about that. There we're sitting. That was a long time ago. Katherine was well into her 90s, not too long ago. So long ago when we were in classrooms, people just sat in rows and somebody stood at the board and explained how to do things. By the time she turned 10, Katherine was ready for high school. But back then, America was legally segregated by race. That means that people were separated by, and typically you were either white or you were a brown child, and so you were separated. Her town's high school didn't admit any black students of any age. That was a problem. Katherine burned with fury. She wanted more than anything to keep learning. There was still so much to know. It wasn't right that she wasn't allowed to go to the high school. Father said, "Count on me," Katherine's father told her. By working night and day, he earned enough money to move the family to a town with a black high school. And it was in West Virginia. Katherine loved high school. She was good at every subject, but math was still her favorite. She dreamed of becoming a research mathematician, making discoveries about the number patterns that are the foundations of our universe. Oh my goodness, we like to do number patterns too. That's what we do in Number Corner. That's what good mathematicians do. They look at patterns and then figure out how we can apply that mathematically. But in those days, there were no jobs. In those days, there were no jobs as research mathematicians for women. Professions mostly available to them were teaching and nursing. So Katherine became an elementary school teacher. She liked her job and she loved her students, but she never stopped dreaming about exploring numbers. She's teaching the volume of cylinders there, and a cone on top of a cylinder and a sphere. My goodness, we weren't learning that in elementary. In the 1950s, the U.S. government's National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, called NACA, hired thousands of new employees. It even started hiring black women as mathematicians. Katherine heard about the mathematician job and her heart raced with excitement. Perhaps her dream could come true after all. But when she applied for one of the positions, she was told they were already filled. Katherine had to wait a whole year until new spots opened up. Her patience paid off, and she got the job. So sometimes we don't always get what we want right at the minute, but hanging on and persevering through can lead us to what our goals. A few years later, the Soviet Union sent a rocket ship up into space, launching a space race with the United States. NACA was rolled into a new space agency, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or called NASA. Katherine now found herself at the heart of America's space program. She worked as a electronic, and they have computer in parentheses because they didn't have computers like that at that time. Electronic computers were not widely used yet. She spent time calculating long series of numbers. All the computers were women. They gave their task all the computers were women. They were given the tasks that men thought were boring and unimportant. That didn't bother Katherine. She knew that without her contributions, a spaceship couldn't reach its destination nor safely return back to Earth. Their computing or their math work was essential for them in order for the spaceship to go where it needed to go. As you can see, and you'll learn about this math once you get up into high school, that's all a mathematical procedure that helps you to think about your speed and what's going to happen to something going through the air. You'll hear that in both science and in math. Here's why. Sending a rocket ship into space is like throwing a ball into the air. And why don't you try this when you can? Go outside and do this. At first, the force of the throw sends the ball up, up, up. But as its energy runs out, the ball curves back toward the ground. When it lands, where it lands depends on the angle it was thrown, how high and how fast it flew. Because math is a kind of language, Katherine could ask those questions. How high would the rocket ship go? How fast would it travel? Using numbers. And numbers would provide the all-important answers. Where would it land? That was very important. To find out, Katherine plotted the numbers she calculated on a graph. A lot of you are beginning to learn to use graphs right now. When she joined the points together, they formed a curved line. At one end of the line was Earth at the time the rocket ship launched, and the other end was Earth where the ship would land. You can see the picture of the ball. If you take the ball out, you can see that. And then here the rocket ship would be doing exactly the same thing. Katherine's reputation for accuracy and strong leadership skills. She was known for asking plenty of questions. Don't forget that. Questions are really important. Somebody else might have that same question in their mind, or if they didn't, you might spark something with them. She got promoted to Project Mercury, a new program designed to send the first American astronauts into space. Mercury's missions were going to be dangerous, so dangerous that even the Project star astronaut John Glenn refused to fly unless Katherine okayed the numbers. You can count on me, she said. Glenn's spacecraft, Friendship 7, orbited Earth 3 times. That means it went around the Earth 3 times and returned home safely. Glenn became a national hero. So this is what the spaceships used to look like. And when you can see that the ship went around the Earth 3 times, orbited it. That was Mercury's mission. Katherine was promoted again. Now she was asked to calculate the flight paths for Project Apollo, the first flights to the moon. Count on me, she said. On July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts walked on the moon. Their feat was celebrated around the world. More triumphs followed. Apollo 12 rocketed to the moon in November 1969. So that's a great thing. You might want to look that up on YouTube or look that up and investigate more, and you can actually see when they walked on the moon. You can see John Glenn walking on the moon. They had a lot of equipment, and this is a cool thing. The suits that they wear for outer space made right in Delaware, in Dover. Apollo 13 launched on April 11th, 1970, but on the third day of Apollo 13's flight, the worst thing possible happened: an explosion in space. Could the crippling spaceship make it to the moon? And if it didn't, would it be able to get back to Earth? The 3 astronauts on board were in grave peril or danger. Commander Jim Lovell told Mission Control, "Houston, we have a problem." Back on Earth, Katherine Johnson got a phone call. Her flight path calculations would have to be done all over again and perfectly. It would be the toughest challenge of her life. Katherine told Mission Control, "You can count on me." She rolled up her sleeves, took a deep breath, and began doing the math. She worked hard and fast. A few hours later, Katherine's calculations were finished. The flight path to return home would take the ship around the far side of the moon. From there, the moon's gravity would act like a slingshot to zing the ship back to Earth. To get home, the crew of Apollo 13 would have to follow Katherine's course exactly by burning off fuel at precise intervals. If the astronauts made a mistake, their ship would drift through space forever. Katherine waited anxiously to hear the astronauts' reports. Finally, it crackled over the loudspeaker. "We've got it. Apollo 13 was back on track." Katherine Johnson had done it. She brought Apollo 13 home. She was no longer the kid who dreamed of what lay beyond the stars. She was now a star herself. Another just interesting book about a woman who really pioneered for the United States and led them into new uncharted land. It's so exciting. I was happy to share that with you today.